Hey, Dave LaCalia with Head Games Motorworks. Today we got a teardown video of Jimmy Nugan's 1600 horsepower 2JZ cylinder head. It's been gone for a couple years. It's back for some upgrades. We're about to make 2,000 horsepower. It's a roll race car. Pretty cool. Check it out. See you soon. Let's take a look at the cylinder head. This was one of our first CNC ported heads. I said it was a couple years ago, and it is our street port, which means it doesn't go to the gasket. Stock size valve, bronze guides, lash mill assemble. It's our 2J-2 package. And if you take a look here, I mean, for years of roll racing, beating the crap out of it, the valve seats look really, really good. I don't see anything really wrong. Usually, if we had some valve float or what have you, there would be some obvious signs of it. Let me take a look at the intake port. Everything looks really, really good. Of course it does. It's a Head Games head. Of course it looks amazing. Well, let's check out the cam journals. Now, there's a little bit of damage here. That is from shipping. That is no big deal. But if you look at all the rest of the cam journals, they're very clean. There's no big marks in them. And the bucket holes also look amazing. Now, when you have a really well-built engine, you'll find stuff like this. And also, it really comes down to assembly. The guys assembling this stuff, sometimes they're just not all there. They're not paying attention to everything. Jimmy is one of those guys who pays attention to everything, and so is Brian Roche, who built the engine down in Maryland. I really like working with these guys. Now you will see there's a little bit of marks in here on the #1 cam journal. You can also see it here, but I mean, it's nothing that like we can't just polish out. There's no real damage, and all the rest of the journals look amazing. Let's talk about camshafts. Now, we picked a GSC R2 camshaft for Jimmy because the car, as I said, makes 1600 horsepower. It's the perfect camshaft, and that is what it was designed to do. And we see a lot of stuff online about these cams having issues, and you can see here 1600 horsepower. These look freaking beautiful. You can see the journals follow the same way that the cam caps did, or the cam journals did. The lobes look really good. Obviously, these are older pair, so they're not the polished ones of today, but the lobes look very, very good. There's a little bit of scarring here, and we're going to get into that in a second. But overall, these things look amazing. Totally reusable. Buckets, what do they look like? They had billet cams. Check it out. So these look a little worn, and when I say that, so you take like a little pick, you can kind of go over it, you feel like a little bit of something going on a couple of them. Now, why would this be? So we learned over the last couple of years that it's actually not the camshaft. So sometimes it's the installation of the valve spring. And I say that because we obviously put this head together, and we never checked the outer diameter of the valve spring. We usually just check spring height and distance to coil bind. And it became apparent when we started putting these larger cams in that there was issues with fitment. So sometimes they would coil bind, and we're like, we have distance to coil bind when we measure it, but the spring itself would not go in there. Now, this is a Faria Pro Spring. The Pro Spring actually has been replaced. So if you guys, if you go to buy one of these springs, make sure that you have the newer version of them. Those springs are badass. Here we have a no-go gauge. No-go gauge means that this diameter replicates the cylinder head. And when we go to assembly now, we will make sure that the valve spring fits into this hole, which means it will fit into the cylinder head, and we don't have to measure them all. We can just do it in a timely fashion. Now the old Faria spring, this is the Faria 109 ends in part number. It's a pro spring. It does not fit. So it is bigger than 28 millimeter. 28 millimeter is the size of the hole in the head. Now if you look closely, now we made another video about this. We're gonna make another video. See, it does not actually go into the hole at all. What will happen here is you're gonna lose coil bind height. You're gonna increase spring pressure, which is not a problem. That's why some of them survive, because it actually increases spring pressure. But it'll take away coil bind height, and now we're gonna basically the coils will be touching each other, or it won't even turn over, which is how we learned about this whole situation. And that relates to the bucket and the camshaft. So the bucket is riding on top of the valve, which is on top of the valve spring, and if the valve spring is coil binding and the camshaft does not care where it's supposed to be, it is going to wear the bucket. There's just no way about it, because it's going to push it down as far as the camshaft's going to be turning. So we learned all this. We're going to be changing this kit out. We're going to be putting a spring that fits into it. Stock size Faria Comp Plus valves. The valves look amazing. This material valve, we've been using this for many years, almost as long as we've been in business, 20 years. You can tell that this thing was not floating. There's no big ledge here. You know, if you watched some of our videos before, there's big ledges on the valve. The tip looks great. You can see here that there is no little dots. When you see the dots, that's when you know it's been floating. So we're going to replace, actually this is the exhaust valve, stock size. We're going to be putting a +1 6.5 millimeter GSC valve in it to withstand the heat that this thing's about to make. This is also a Faria Comp Plus intake valve. These valves flow good, they work good. Again, no float issues. You can see on the tip, that's how you look at it. The stem looks great. You can tell the clearance there was great. There's no real visible wear. It made a little marks in it, but nothing crazy. And the 45 looks freaking amazing as well. There's like maybe just a little bit of beating on it, but this thing went 1,600 horsepower. Talking 50 pounds of boost. Next up for this cylinder head, lots of parts, lots of labor. It's going to make 2,000 horsepower, and it's going to do so reliably because we've done it so many times before. Please comment below. I'm in the comments all the time. Let's talk, and thanks for watching. Talk to you next time.